This is Benjaman Kyle. Despite being a real, living person, in the eyes of the government, Benjaman Kyle did not exist. This is because Benjaman Kyle had no social security number, because Benjaman Kyle was never born. He just appeared. Or rather, he was discovered. It was 5 a.m. on August 31st, 2004, when a Burger King employee in Richmond Hill, Georgia, USA, steps out to the back to throw out some trash. When she gets there, however, she sees a middle-aged man slumped over by the dumpster. He is naked and unconscious. I somehow doubt this is all that uncommon an occurrence to stumble across behind a Burger King at 5 a.m, and the employee simply called the police. When the police arrived, the man was still unresponsive, and the ambulance took him to hospital. Upon examination, it was found the man was in his 50s, and was covered in sunburn and bites from fire ants. He had 3 depressions in his skull that appeared to be caused by blunt force trauma, but most worrying of all, he had no form of identification on him, and no one had come forward looking for him. This left the hospital staff horrified, as they wondered, who the fuck was going to pay for all this? With no name to go on, they labelled him as John Doe. Well, actually they were a little creative and called him Burger King Doe, or BK for short. They'd have to wait until he regained his senses to learn his actual identity, and more importantly his credit card details. This was unfortunate because when BK was finally lucid enough to respond, he couldn't remember anything. He had no idea what he had been doing or who he was, except he was sure his first name was Benjaman, with 2 A's. He didn't remember his last name, but seeing as he was already being called BK, he decided to temporarily adopt Kyle as his last name. So his name was derived from Burger King, where he was found naked. The best guess so far is that the restaurant itself birthed him, and he is the Burger Prince. Hospital staff did not share this belief, and he was transferred to a psychological ward. Here, BK started to really come around and regain his sense. It soon became clear he was one of the more high-functioning individuals in the ward, except for the fact that he was almost totally blind, and he still had no idea who he was. No one else seemed to know either, and local businesses couldn't recall seeing anyone matching his description. But slowly, some memories started to return to BK. He seemed to recall having brothers, and his date of birth was August 29, 1948. When asked how he could remember such a distinct date despite not knowing anything else, BK revealed a very interesting clue that hinted at his former identity. No, I'm only joking, he said he remembered it because he was born 10 years before Michael Jackson, to the day. An incidental piece of info that his mind had obviously made a strong link with, just like how I always remember the year of Doom's release in 1993 and the year of Kurt Cobain's death in 1994, because my brain has made the link that Cobain could have played Doom while he was still alive. Totally random pieces of information now forever connected in my mind, meaning I never forget these dates, and also I probably have some sort of mental disorder. After his release, Benjaman Kyle spent the next few years drifting between hospitals, homeless shelters, and the streets. It was difficult for him to find employment because he had no ID or social security number. He would occupy his time by cleaning the floors of the shelters. Although his poor vision meant he could only make out large shapes, he couldn't actually tell if his efforts were indeed making the floors cleaner. He just went over everything until he could safely assume so. He could have been dragging dog shit all over the place for all he knew. After this first year, BK was diagnosed with cataracts in both eyes. He had corrective surgery, and when he looked in the mirror, he was horrified to discover he looked 20 years older than he had thought. Who the hell was this guy? Many attempts were made to discover BK's true identity, and the FBI had him listed as a missing person, despite knowing where he was, which is the only time this has been done. His fingerprints were compared to FBI databases, his face was searched for on driver's license registers, he did many DNA tests, but still they couldn't figure out who he was. He did interviews with a bunch of media outlets, hoping someone would recognize him. He even appeared on Dr. fucking Phil. But apart from some unhinged weirdos, no one reached out to BK. Part of his memory did return, however. He learned he knew how to drive, so he probably did have a driver's license at some point. A local restaurant owner sympathized with his plight and gave him a job, despite not having a social security number. Here, BK learned that he was already familiar with all the equipment and procedures, so he had probably worked in this industry before, lending even more credence to my Burger Prince theory. As part of his many efforts to regain his identity, BK underwent hypnotherapy. While under hypnosis, BK was able to remember various details about his life. He had 2 or 3 brothers, but couldn't remember anyone else. He had memories of certain monuments and businesses in Indianapolis and Indiana, but no memories of other landmarks that came later. With this, they were able to place BK in Indianapolis around the 50s and 60s. But where did he go from there? Other memories placed him in Denver, Colorado around the 70s, but once again he had no memory of things that happened in Denver past this, so he'd probably moved on by then. Unfortunately, after the 80s, BK had no memories at all, including how he ended up in Georgia. He was able to recall reading about the September 11th attacks, but other than that, the last 20 years of his life were totally missing, consistent with the fact his appearance was 20 years older than he thought it should be. Benjaman Kyle spent over a decade searching for his former identity. You can actually still find Reddit posts he made during this time, asking people for help and to sign a petition to get the US government to issue him a new social security number. He had been refused on the basis he was presumably a US citizen and already had one. But Benjaman Kyle didn't have a social security number because Benjaman Kyle didn't exist. In fact, despite his memory, his name wasn't Benjaman at all. You see, over the years of his searching, many people who heard his story shared their DNA in an effort to help BK. In 2015, this paid off. BK had a match with a disabled veteran in Indiana named Furman Powell. This made sense as BK's earliest memories were from Indianapolis. Furman Powell stated he had a brother who was born on August 29th, 1948, 10 years before Michael Jackson to the day. In 1976, this brother disappeared, leaving all his belongings behind. They filed a missing persons report and police found him working as a cook in Colorado, a place BK remembered being after he left Indiana. So BK was Furman Powell's missing brother, and his real name was William Burgess Powell. So what happened between Colorado and Georgia? Well, here's the thing. Recovering his old social security records, William Powell had received income from working at various restaurants in Denver, Colorado until 1983. After that, no record. So 20 years of his life is still missing. Now that he was reacquainted with people from his old life, Powell learned that he had always been a bit of a loner and a heavy drinker. It's assumed that after 1983, he became a homeless drifter and just fell between the cracks, perhaps assuming different identities, which is maybe where he got the name Benjaman from. It may always be a mystery what happened during those 20 years, but I suppose the most important thing is he got his life and his identity back. There are many more people out there that don't get that chance. They don't wake up one day and realize they've been lost for the last 20 years because they die while they're still lost, and nobody knows who they are or where they came from. So their unidentified bodies go in nameless graves. Whatever horrific event led to William Powell being left naked by a Burger King dumpster, ironically might have been the best thing that happened to him, because before that, he could have been one of those nameless people we walk by every day, until one day, we stop passing by them and don't even realize they're not there anymore. That, or he was abducted by aliens. Well, if you enjoyed this video, I have plenty more for you to watch, and if plenty isn't enough, why not subscribe and see a new one every week? Until then, stay safe.
I really don't know. Hey ma'am, where are you? Covered in blood, he's naked. It looks like somebody tried to kill him. I don't know.
Calm down, ma'am. We'll send an ambulance.
Oh my God, oh my God.
I don't know how I got there, and I don't have no memories.
Doctors diagnosed him with retrograde amnesia. He had no